for the very warm welcome indeed. It's great to be back in Helsinki. I took a 25-degree drop in temperature when I arrived, having spent the day in Milan earlier on this week. Not prepared at all, but thankfully I brought my scarf. So thank you for the warm welcome once again. It's great to be here and to really spend the next 20 minutes to give you an insight into how a traditional company of Konica Minolta is undergoing a huge transformation. Of course, transformation is key, as is digital, and what it means to us as an organization. Of course, many people may know of us through our traditional business of cameras, which actually no longer exists. We sold back in 2007. And the second thing that people associate to us with is around our multifunction printers. I know nothing about printers. I know a little bit about cameras purely because of a hobby. The responsibility that we have within the business is looking at the next 3 years, 5 years plus, in developing new portfolio lines of businesses. So when I joined, I'm coming up to 3 years in Konica Minolta, and I joined in May 2014. And people said, oh, you're the innovation guy, go and innovate. Now, we have our core business and daily business to do. What we didn't realize, actually, and part of the cultural aspect of the company, which traditionally we think Japanese-centric, meaning that a lot of the research, the development gets done in Japan, and then it's sent out to the world to go and sell. So going from that hardware-centric organization to software, services, applications, and then ultimately an IT supplier. But we've been innovative for over 140 years. Right? So it's not like innovation just popped up as a key word. So we have a lot of history of innovation. But in year one, we felt like a startup in this organization. So the aim here was to establish 5 business innovation centers by our CEO. So Mr. Yamana-san, 3 years ago, said, right, how can we look at the future of our business and have a separate entity as a function that's called the Business Innovation Center, complemented by research and development in other regions as well. So the remit was very simple. Look at where we are now, establish 5 functions from the US into Europe, Asia Pacific, Singapore, which is headquartered in Singapore, in Tokyo, and in Shanghai in China. Part of that is looking at short-term technologies, and short-term is defined as being from now to 18 months. Anything beyond 18 months plus is mid-term to long-term, which is where our R&D facilities are working on. So what was the philosophy? The main 3 focus areas, really, when we think about, for example, and how do we become a technology provider when people know us mainly for our cameras and print? What do we do in terms of being environmentally friendly and continuously looking at sustainability? And the third area around diversity and innovation. Diversity comes in different forms. So diversity for us is really the power of mind and the innovation and what we call the innovation and the power of many. The word innovation itself, it's quite a nebulous word, right? So we have to give it meaning. And what does it mean in terms of innovating on ourselves as opposed to only innovating with customers? So digital transformation for us is 2 things. Number 1 is actually transforming our internal culture as well as then building that portfolio, which is much more client and customer facing. And a lot of people think about digital, that everything needs to be digital, and we have this whole thing around Internet of Everything, etc. So lots of hype and key buzzwords, as I'd say, but how do we make them meaningful? I'm all about human connection in this very digital world. And so being present and being physically present in a place is far more important for me than only being digitally connected. So the philosophy of the Business Innovation Center is how we bridge and how we focus on bridging between the physical to the digital. And not everything needs to be digitized, but where it makes sense, absolutely, it's key thing to do as well. Just in a nutshell, Konica Minolta, we are a business of around $10 billion. Majority of that is actually from a European team as well. We have just under this year around 44,000 colleagues. And where I was before, actually, I spent a number of years with a company called EDS and HP. So I had the privilege of coming back to Helsinki a few times. So I came from a 330,000 people company to what feels like a family at 44,000. And other areas that we're working on in terms of Konica Minolta. Firstly, business technologies is the core business. And the more I'm settling here, the more I'm realizing that there are actually phenomenal areas. For example, measurement. How does, in a digital workplace environment, lighting affect the mood that people are in? We know, for example, when there's natural light, people sleep better. As people sleep better, they will end up becoming more productive, more efficient. How do you measure efficiency? So we have color measurement devices, we have light measurement devices. 10% of our revenue is from healthcare, so primarily mammography and radiography products. But where we are innovating in this area is saying digital healthcare, and I'll touch on that in a second as well. So the 5 BICs, as I've touched on already, we have a focus really. So for example, let's say the areas of a digital workplace. Thinking about security solutions, where does imaging play a part? Things like behavioral analytics, voice. So lots of different technologies and entities that are coupled together to make them meaningful. So we created a term called enterprise innovation, and in a nutshell, traditional innovation is measured mostly from how much investment is being made in research and development. How many patents are we filing? How many inventions do we have? The focus for us in the BIC, the Business Innovation Center, is much more client-centric. So it's another kind of a parallel working with R&D, as well as partners. Partners are key to everything we do. For example, in the last 2 years, we've built a community of around 140 partners from the likes of King's College, for example, with whom we're working on, we ran a hackathon on wearable technology, not the big kind of HoloLens type, but we have a monocular holographic lens to look at haptics and how haptics plays a part in terms of engagement within an industrial environment. So partnership is really key to all that we do as well. From an investment perspective, we invested in a company just about 2.5 years ago, based in Vienna, a company called Wikitude, to bring augmented reality solutions to our business. And I'll touch on that in a second as well. So as part of our transformation over the last 3 years, we've also built and developed facilities that are dedicated for client, as a client briefing center. We have in Berlin, in Munich, in BRNO, in fact, in Czech Republic, is where one of our main footprints is for R&D as well, which was established about 1.5 years ago. How do we innovate? What do we do in this funnel? I'm not a fan personally of this funnel. I mean, it has lots of holes. We chuck lots of ideas, and 70 to 80% of the ideas seem to fall out of the holes. However, the good thing is that there is a structure for having that business idea and actually going through this stage gate process all the way through to commercialization. It takes time. It's sometimes a bit painful. So lessons learned, the buy-in, the sponsorship, the engagement internally, externally, etc. So this is something that we have defined as a practical way of building and establishing some of the new areas of technology. So 3 years ago, we started off with a completely blank canvas. And our CEO, Mr. Yamana-san, said to my boss, who's the vice president, what would the future of our business look like? Define what it might look like, create the strategy, and then go and execute that strategy. So it's a great place to be with the highest level of sponsorship. Equally, the challenge is really tough as well to try and look at turning around the business within 3 years. So we have themes under digital transformation, different themes of businesses, what we call as being growth platforms. The first one around sensors and information automation or information management. It's trying to avoid, in my opinion, using the two words which I like separately of big and data, but not together. Because for me, it's a bit of an overkill when we think about big data. So what we said is from big data to small data to meaningful data to then getting more into predictive analytics and then predictive into smart systems. That starts making more sense to us. The second area I touched on is really around healthcare. And for healthcare, what's really important, we have a fantastic young lady who's leading some of this practice at the moment, and the focus is around cancer and cancer research technologies. The third, the area of the digital workplace. It's not a new term. Okay, we know it's been in existence as workplace of the future from the 1990s, when I first began working in late 90s. Excuse me. But what it means is really understanding the flow of information. How does information flow between three different dimensions in a workplace? What is the difference, and is there a difference between a workplace and a workspace? And if there is, what kind of technologies should we think about as a framework? So people are maybe selling a digital workplace. We strongly believe you cannot buy a digital workplace. It's having the framework and building components that constitute towards your needs. So we think about the flow of information in three different dimensions, between people to people, between device to device, and around space to space. And the last one is really innovating on our core, which is business technologies. And we had a launch event 2 weeks ago on looking at our multifunction printers, and we launched a new product range called Workplace Hub, and I'll cover that later on in the panel session as well. I'm fast running out of time, so how do we map across all of these great technologies and machine learning and deep learning and AI and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So we pulled all these together, and then we created under the themes this innovation and technology radar. What we did as part of this is invited partners, if they have something as a startup, as an academic, even mature corporations. If they've got something that fits here, then we have a partnership in motion, then we explore further. This is really an illustration of the people-to-people, etc. But what's more important when it comes to this topic of IoT, and then people say Internet of Things and Internet of Everything. So we had to pause and really make it meaningful for us. And we realized, actually, just our core business of the MFPs have been connected devices for many, many years. It's just how we label this term to make it more meaningful in a different way. So the area that we are really focusing on is coupling of the artificial intelligence together with the IoT and developing more of a standardized platform that then complements what we call the cyber-physical systems, as well as the Internet of Things. And that really fits in nicely in that triangle of the people, space, and device. There is a white paper on this as well, so if anyone is interested afterwards, you'll be able to download it just if you would like. So where are we now? In a nutshell, it's been a great ride so far, and the pressure is actually on towards commercialization. So some of the areas that we are now leading towards commercialization, starting off with augmented reality. And I know people have probably covered this yesterday to an extent. AR versus VR versus MR, so augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. We are focusing firstly on AR, and most importantly, when we think about a solution set as part of our portfolio, how do we bring print to life? Because people say, Konica Minolta, you're the printer guys. So what we've done is added a layer of experiences on print. That's part of our first portfolio. Ideation, how does a company generate ideas, and where do ideas come from? How do you manage that in a centralized platform to keep it very simple and intuitive? And that's something else that's heading towards commercialization soon as well. I referred to the glasses, the smart glasses already. It was fascinating because it was very traditional Japanese in the sense that the research and development team had been working on this lens for over 10 years. It is a beautiful lens with about 70 to 80% transparency. And we said, why do we not even know about this? And we brought it into Europe, and now we have a proof of concept with 2 quite large clients in Germany. We look at picking and assembling, instruction-based, so it's very much hands-on. You have a glove, a barcode scanner, you scan, it sends a signal, and it gives you some instructions. The demo we have is with Lego bricks, and it works quite well, and I believe we had someone from Lego here yesterday as well. So yeah, it's a good experience in all. And a couple of other areas around services of innovation and predictive analytics as well. So AR solution set, very briefly, starting off at the top, we have augmented print. And just to touch on a couple of others, what we're finding is the use of digitization. So let's say Google Maps for indoors in a larger space. It could be an airport, it could be a museum, it could be equally a manufacturing environment. So the second part of the portfolio for augmented reality for us is digitization of an indoor space. That then leads into service and maintenance through the glasses, all the way through to data. So one part of our IoT strategy is, yes, developing the technologies. Much more important is the capture of the data and then making that data meaningful to empower people to make better decisions. And that's really a key philosophy that we are embedding in everything that we do. A couple of examples of augmented print. If you are not familiar already, these are some examples. First philosophy is Konica Minolta on Konica Minolta. So this is our European president, Mr. Nakagawa-san. And what we've done is embedded an AR experience in our corporate brochure to give a personalized message. That really becomes stronger because everything we develop needs to be experienced internally first as well. A brief example here of digitization. From last year, there's a show called DRUPA in Germany, and we, within half a day, captured and scanned 2,500 square feet of the space, digitized it by having layers of augmentation on top. And it's available for anyone, anywhere, to experience that actual walkthrough as well. And the last part around the smart glasses, so I briefly just touched on this. This is how they look. On the left, we have the current lens. From a color, from a clarity point of view, it has a camera at the top. There is a HD version as well available. What does it mean? So it's capturing, from an IoT point of view, the data, it's processing the data, and sending signals back to make and give instructions to the end user. On the right-hand side, it's really thinking about it from the future. The fact that this is really light, the battery is an attachment which lasts for about eight hours. So monocular, there's the beneficial of having it monocular, but what happens when you have a binocular? So we create a 3D environment, and that's some of the research and development that's going on in our laboratories in Europe as well. So speaking about laboratories in R&D, which is headquartered from London, based in BRNO in Czech Republic, these are some of the areas that they're actually focusing on as well. We're seeing a huge growth in computer vision. Of course, a whole emphasis around artificial intelligence, but much more around platforms. Platform-based solutions is really key to where we are heading as well. So where will wearable technology be in 5 years' time? What will it look like, and how do we map that journey to get there? And the very last thing is really looking at predictive analytics. This is from the smart data point of view. How do we know? We have over 500,000 MFPs, multifunction printers, in offices. How do we know where they are? How do we know what state they're in? How do we then assign the right engineers in the right time to be more efficient and be more proactive than reactive? So we've mapped across, which is also available here for us internally in terms of all of our products that are IoT-fied, let's say, because they have the sensors. Now we're making more use of the data. This can be then drilled down further to really see exactly where each of these equipment pieces are located. So on that note, I'd like to just share that there is a white paper available. Please see me, I'm here for the morning. If not, then just please drop me an email. And I think I'm now quite close to the end. So that was a rapid 20 minutes insight into where we were and where we are. The next 3 to 5 years will take us into around, let's say, cognitive platform development, and more on that later on during the panel session. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I wish you a great day. Thank you.